To that end, Nexus has been a great partner, exploring different ways that we want to expand how the city supports not just startup cooperatives, but existing businesses that have been meaningful in community, typically small local entrepreneurs who in many ways act in the same way a cooperative does inherently with their values of connection to community and family operation. Well, a lot of those organizations or companies may be in a situation where they are done with their life cycle of business. What does it mean to capture some of that energy and continue it in a community spirited sort of way? And I believe the cooperative model is a tool to do that intentionally. And Nexus will, of course, speak to that. And then, of course, the people who have operated and done so many successful things in Northeast, I really wanted to highlight, touch base, and sort of share sort of an update. I know several years ago, we were able to host a delegation, an international delegation in Northeast Minneapolis. Well, it was based in Minneapolis, but the fun part, of course, had to happen in Northeast Minneapolis, where a newly minted cooperative brewery in a cooperatively owned commercial space had the international delegation cheers with one of our locally made beers to celebrate the international power of a movement, a longstanding movement of cooperative enterprise. So I thought, let's have a mini version of that. Let's touch base. We're neighbors. We don't necessarily get to bump into each other, and certainly not with 6 feet of distancing. We don't literally bump into each other, and sometimes we pass, not even knowing we've passed. I've had many phone calls where, was that you in the grocery store? And I'm like, was it a plaid gingham thing with sunglasses and a red hat? Yeah, that was me. And so we just passed sort of like ships in the night. So a lot of informal conversations aren't had, but here we have a chance to convene in this format. I will introduce our speakers for those who aren't familiar with them, beginning with Benjamin Tsai, the program director for the Worker Ownership Initiative at Nexus Community Partners, as well as representatives from some of our local Eastside cooperatives. Notably, John, the manager of Eastside Food Cooperative, Evan, the State Brewing Cooperative founder, along with his cohort, Jeremy from Broken Clock Brewing Cooperative founder, and Jill, one of the many members of the Northeast Investment Cooperative, a very noteworthy effort that gets a lot of attention. Every time I go to a forum in another city, everyone asks me about what's this NEIC thing. So I'm very happy to have our local. So with that, I will yield the floor to Benjamin and see where the conversation goes with everyone taking in turn.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Benjamin Tsai, Director of the Worker Ownership Initiative at Nexus Community Partners. And just wanted to, share a little bit about the work we do and the role we see cooperatives playing in community wealth building. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Presuming that function is enabled.
I did make you a presenter, so you should be able to.
Give me 1 second here. It is, I'm not super familiar with Microsoft Teams, but it is just the share content button, right?
Share content, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should have a variety of options. Otherwise, you can quick email it to me and I can.
Yeah, maybe we could switch the order and I'll try to get my computer to work with Microsoft Teams.
Okay, Councilmember Reich, do you want to maybe jump to some of your local friends? You're muted.
I think this was the first, if you can believe it, the first time I did that today. In any event, how about we start with John? Eastside Food Co-op, of course, is a story near and dear to my heart, and it'd be great to hear from John to see what he has to say.
Thanks, Kevin. It's so nice to be here with everyone tonight. So it's really good to be here with this amazing group of people. So as Kevin said, my name's John. I'm the general manager at Eastside Food Cooperative. Hopefully you're familiar with us and you know that we're a natural foods grocery store. We specialize in organic and locally grown and produced foods. And Eastside was formed like many cooperative businesses when a group of community members came together in the 90s and they started to ask the question, why don't we have a grocery store that meets our needs in our neighborhood? And I'm happy to say that Kevin was one of those early supporters of Eastside. And through these conversations and dinner parties, what started as a question really became a community-owned business, and it was designed to specifically meet the needs of the flourishing Northeast arts and culture community. Eastside opened its door to its community, including 800 co-op owners in December of 2003. It had $2 million in sales that first year. Last year, our ownership counts grew to 9,600, and the store had $17.6 million in sales. Through its 17 years of operations, Eastside has listened closely to its community of owners and shoppers, and in order to create a store experience that not only meets their food and wellness needs, but also provides a place where the community comes to connect. For this reason, the pandemic has just been a really huge impact on our business. We rapidly changed the way we conducted our business last March, and we continue to evaluate and adapt to the changing conditions that the pandemic provides. It's been difficult for our business, but at the same time, we feel so fortunate that we have jobs that we can offer to our employees, and that our community trusts us to provide them with a safe shopping experience during these unprecedented times. As a result of that, we've been able to maintain the full hours for all of our 115 staff members, and we've also been really proud to offer our staff premium pay during the entirety of the pandemic. During our previous fiscal year, we paid over $3.3 million in direct wages to staff. With 107 of our employees living within 10 miles of the co-op, that's over $3 million that stays right in our community. The co-op has become a really important part of building a strong community. And it's on that idea of building strong communities that I just want to dwell a little bit as I talk with you tonight. Healthy communities that allow the members of the community to thrive must be nourished. There was a recent Atlantic book review that I read of Alec McGillis' new book called Fulfillment, Winning and Losing in One-Click America, and it contained this sobering statistic. The world's billionaires increased their wealth by about a fifth over the course of the last year to more than $11 trillion. Meanwhile, a quarter of U.S. adults said someone in their household was laid off or lost a job because of the pandemic. The Center on Policy and Budget Priorities began reporting in early May on the correlation that they were seeing between this economic crisis and rising food insecurity. They noted that 46.5% of families experienced job or income loss reported spending less money on food during the last month in a survey that they conducted late March and early April. And then we saw further evidence of growing food insecurity in an article that NPR published in September of 2020. They reported that before the pandemic, 10.5% of households in the United States said they experienced food insecurity at some point during 2019. An analysis by the Brookings Institution in late June of 2020 found 27.5% of families with children were food insecure. As we look a little bit closer to home, we can find data about the Northeast community on the Minnesota Compass website. From 2015 to 2019, 39% of households reported income under $50,000, with more than 70% of those households reporting income under $35,000. Meanwhile, median rent in Northeast grew to $1,458 a month. To put this in perspective, a household making less than $35,000 would expect to spend more than 50% of their pre-tax income on housing when choosing to live in Northeast. For these reasons, food insecurity has become a really important issue for us at Eastside. And we were excited to launch in October of 2019 a program that we're calling FARE. That's F-A-R-E, and it stands for Food Access to Restore Equity. This affordability program is designed to help shoppers stretch their dollar with an everyday discount on fresh produce and affordable staple items for their families. We identified several priorities when we developed the FARE program. Most important was that we wanted the program to be centered on meeting the community's needs. To support this goal, we prioritized listening to experts in the food access sector for guidance. We spoke with staff from local food shelves and human services organizations, but really more importantly, we spent time talking to residents participating in the Market Bucks program at the Northeast Farmers Market. Overwhelmingly, we heard that residents enrolled in food assistance programs wanted better access to fresh foods. And so for this reason, we structured our affordability program so that FARE shoppers receive a 20% discount on fresh fruits and vegetables that they can find in our produce department, and then affordable staple items that we offer throughout the rest of the store. As we further developed this program, it was important to us that the program was participant-centered. And what we were really shooting for was we wanted minimal paperwork with the program. We wanted really simple verification methods to get people signed up. And then we really wanted people to be able to be at the register and be there with dignity and anonymity. And so we designed this program in such a way that it's open to any Minnesotan that's enrolled in SNAP, MFAP, MFIP, or the WIC program. Participants receive their discount automatically at the register. Every time they use their EBT card in the store, we automatically renew their eligibility for an additional 90 days. And not only does this make it easy for people to remain in the program, it also provides them a discount when they need it most, after their monthly EBT discounts have already been exhausted. As we continue to develop and refine this program, we're focused on making sure that it includes affordable items that we know are critical to for our community. And we also want to continue to refine our pricing and product mix so that shoppers have more options for trading up or down when making food decisions. Coupled with some of the classes we've been able to develop, recipes and shopping lists, we're hearing from FARE participants how meaningful our efforts have been. We're a little over a year into the program at this point, and in our first year, we were able to serve over 200 households that shop at our store. We provided over $10,000 in discounts, and we've been able to develop stronger partnerships with both local health clinics and community organizations through this effort. As for FARE participants, we're finding that they're purchasing 5 to 7% more produce than non-participant shoppers. And one shopper shared with us, "Thank you for offering FARE. It allows my family to have access to organic and local foods we otherwise couldn't afford." In addition to this affordability program, we're taking other efforts to build stronger community. The reduction of waste has long been a priority of our co-op. We're proud that we've been able to partner with several local organizations to rescue food that would otherwise end up in the trash. Over the last several years, we've worked with Eastside Neighborhood Services, Twin Cities Food Justice, the North Country Food Alliance, and Food Not Bombs. Our donations provide fresh food to organizations and individuals that might otherwise struggle to access them. As an example, over the summer, we were able to partner with a group of concerned Minneapolis residents to donate over 1,800 pounds of ice to our unhoused neighbors. Finally, as we're getting ready to get into March, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Eastside's and other co-ops' participation in the Minnesota Food Shares March campaign. 2021 is going to mark the 40th anniversary of this campaign that began with an effort to restock food shelves of the 7-county Twin Cities area. Now, as the largest grassroots food and fund drive in the state, the March campaign brings together a diverse group of people and organizations, and they stock nearly 300 food shelves. We've partnered with them the last couple of years. Many of the other Twin Cities co-ops have participated in this program. And last year, they raised more than $21.5 million and collected 7.4 million pounds for the food shelves. The co-ops, and there was a lot of Minnesota food co-ops that participated in this program, provided just under 6,000 pounds of food and a little more than $160,000 in cash donations. At Eastside, we collect money for the Little Kitchen Food Shelf, which is out of the Grace Center, and they are one of our 12 recipients of our annual Seedlings program. Through the Seedlings program, we raise money from our community to support organizations working in the food access, agriculture, and environmental sectors, and we're going to be opening our application process for 2022 Seedling recipients later this spring. I'd love to spend time talking to you about other ways that Eastside's working to build community, but I'm sure I'm getting near the amount of time they have allotted for me. But before I finish, though, I do want to mention that the killing of George Floyd really deeply impacted Eastside's cooperative community and has caused us to really further our commitment to pursuing diversity, equity, and inclusivity in our work. Although I know I have a lot more to learn in order to better support these ideals, I also know that addressing systemic racism must be a priority. And I'm really looking forward to working with Eastside's board of directors and other cooperative leaders as we work to build communities that are going to allow everyone who lives in them to thrive. And on that, I'll thank you for my time. I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm excited to answer questions later. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And it just goes to show how many ways a cooperative enterprise will be responsive to not only its original purpose, but ongoing efforts and purposes and meaning to community as it evolves. And I think your updates, demonstrate that in very material ways. So thank you. I don't know, Benjamin, is everything figured out?
Maybe. There were some security settings on my computer that definitely were at issue. So I could try. I'm going to try to share my screen real quick, see if I can get this started. And if it works, then I will proceed. Can people see a slide?
Yes.
All right. So starting again. So I'm Benjamin Tsai with Nexus Community Partners, and was hoping to just chat a bit about the role we see cooperatives playing in community wealth building. And first, a bit about me. So I'm the director of the Worker Ownership Initiative, and I have about 18 years of experience in the cooperative sector, really starting with helping to co-found the Hub Bike Co-op, if you're familiar with that, down on the south side. So I used that experience. I helped grow that business and learn, not only about running a small business, but a lot about worker co-ops. And I used that to kind of bridge and do more cooperative consulting, which is what I pretty much do now. And I did want to share a bit about what Nexus does broadly, because we're a pretty diverse organization. We are a nonprofit intermediary, and we support strong, equitable, and just communities in which all residents are engaged, recognized as leaders, and have pathways to opportunities. And within that kind of bigger mission, we have a community wealth building team, which is where my work sits. And broadly, we do cooperative development of many different flavors. And so that includes supporting worker co-ops, real estate investment co-ops, housing co-ops. I just helped an artist co-op. So really we are very excited to further the cooperative movement on many fronts. And specifically my body of work, though, at the Worker Ownership Initiative, we really focus on kind of connecting with business owners who are potentially looking to transition. And we help provide them the opportunity to at least consider selling to their employees and forming worker cooperatives. Our strategy is we really want to use employee ownership as a community wealth building tool. And we mainly focus on the Twin Cities, and especially with businesses who have BIPOC employees. And we have an ecosystem approach, so we do connect, as an intermediary, we connect, philanthropy, the public sector, the private sector, and we're really trying to build a full network of support to help get business owners this option of selling to their employees. So I did want to talk a little bit about sort of the driving factors that underlie this strategy. And maybe some of you have heard of the silver tsunami, but basically nationally, about 2.3 million businesses are owned by baby boomers who are approaching, if not in, sort of the retirement age. And in the Twin Cities, if you sort of drill down into that, we're talking 26,000 businesses that might be facing some kind of retirement or succession issue. And the studies have shown that most of these retiring business owners do not really have a succession plan. Drilling down a little farther, we've done some studies of the Twin Cities. And as you can see, Hennepin County has a pretty high ratio of businesses that are potentially facing this retirement issue. And you can find some of this data on our website and our partner Project Equity too.
Benjamin, your presentation is not visible, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody said they could see the slides.
We could see it, but then it went away. So I don't know.
Huh, interesting.
It stopped presenting.
Well, sorry about this, folks. I can try again. How about now?
Yes, it's visible.
Oh my, sorry about that. So you probably didn't see any of those previous slides, but basically, there's a driving demographic issue that is putting a lot of businesses locally, nationally and locally at risk of unplanned succession. So the Exit Planning Institute, for example, they have found that 80% of small businesses that are listed never sell. Only a small fraction are passed along to family members. And of those that do sell, a lot of acquisitions, which go to larger firms or out-of-state buyers, they often lead to layoffs, restructuring, or other issues. And so, like in summary, looking at these statistics, we found over 300,000 jobs in the Twin Cities might be vulnerable to unplanned business transitions in the next 5 to 10 years. So let's imagine if some of these jobs can not only be saved, but also turned into opportunities for employees to get a share of the business they work at. And that brings us to employee ownership. So there are two common forms of employee ownership. We have ESOPs, which you may have heard of, and worker cooperatives. ESOPs tend to be a better fit for really big businesses, and there's many types of structuring it. And then worker co-ops have a really wide range of application for size, and that happens to be the model we focus on for a couple different reasons. The worker co-ops they fit better with smaller businesses. They're a little bit more affordable and streamlined to facilitate. A couple other statistics. We have found that most business owners are not familiar with these options, so they're not familiar with the ability to sell to their employees. And even more to that point, a lot of the advisors that are trained in these issues of succession planning, unfortunately, don't really know a whole lot about employee ownership. So it's one of these strategies which is just, unfortunately overlooked more often than it should be. And that's where we come in. So the Worker Ownership Initiative, as I said before, we are business consultants that specialize in cooperative development. And what we really do is we connect with business owners, we help educate, and we help give them the option of selling to their employees and transitioning their business into worker cooperatives. I'll just share, for those of you not familiar, just share some super high level pieces of what worker co-ops are. They're businesses that are owned and controlled by their employee owner members. And these members each get a vote for the board of directors, for example, and they help govern the business. They also get profit sharing, hence the community wealth building aspect. Studies have shown, or this is a survey that was done last year during COVID, and it has been shown that worker cooperatives are very resilient in downturns. It was also found actually to be the same in 2008 during that economic recession. The worker co-ops, they laid off fewer people. They were able to keep the same workforce at a higher rate than other businesses, and furlough fewer employees. So they have definitely, and their overall survival rate was higher. So worker co-ops are definitely a strong option in all economic conditions. And they really do promote a more inclusive economy. These are opportunities for employees to get a real stake in their economic destiny, get profit sharing, get control. And so we work on this as a community wealth building tool. I did want to talk a little bit about how this conversion process works, just so you have a little more detail. And the people that we're connecting with, business owners, mainly those looking to either exit or restructure, recapitalize. But we do actually have owners that look to restructure or transition to co-ops for many different personal reasons, including just general work-life balance. And so why do we do this? The high level, there's a potential buyer on site, which in the transition process is pretty important to, you have a ready buyer. The owner can get a fair sales price. There are tax benefits. It gives the owner an option to have a controlled transition, so they can kind of pace it as they want and kind of customize their transition. And it secures their legacy. The business continues on. And sort of the process we use to help the business owners do this, first and foremost, just general education. We're happy to just tell them how the model works, how the transition process works. We do feasibility to make sure that the finances and the structures line up. And then we actually help get the deal done. We can help pull in experts, CPAs, lawyers, whoever's needed to get the sale of the business closed. And then we even will provide post-transaction support, making sure that stability is kept and that the new employee owners have the support they need to really thrive. We do have CDFI financial partners that help get these deals done. So there's sort of a general myth. A lot of people are like, sell to your employees, how they can't afford this business, you know. Well, with our partners, we can bring in lenders who will help the employees buy these businesses. There's actually one locally called Shared Capital that we've worked with a number of times. A little bit about the way it's done, though. Typically, the seller does hold some of the note, or it's somewhat seller financed. And then the employees actually don't, if you look at this chart, they don't actually need to bring that much money to the table, if any at all. So just sort of wrapping up overall, the benefits we see. So for the new worker owners of these co-ops, they get profit sharing. Statistically, their hourly wages are higher. Their job tenure goes up. For the business, lower turnover, more motivated employees. The owner gets a fair sales price. There's tax benefits, and they protect the legacy of their business. And then the community, they get, jobs are anchored. They get a business that is serving their community, and there is a strengthening to the tax base too. So it's sort of like a triple win, and we're working with a partner called Project Equity to do this work. They're a national level organization. We partner to get these deals done, and yeah, as far as how you can help, we love it when people share the word about what we're doing, and referrals. If you know of any business owners looking for potential exit options, feel free to refer them on to us. So thanks. And I guess we'll take some questions at the end of this. So
yeah, that is correct. And thank you for that presentation. And certainly, I find this a very intriguing aspect for city efforts in terms of our technical assistance program, working with Nexus and other supports in this area, given that we previously had been focused on new startups. Again, a very important area there, but this, I think, gives another front and a timely front, given some of the key insights that Benjamin shared in terms of the demographic shifts that are a challenge and an opportunity. So I really appreciate that. And of course, Lisa, you were about to say something?
I was just going to say that Nicholas Grandfox did have his hand open. You might want to take a question if it's pertinent specifically to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Benjamin.
I think that would work.
Yeah, I was just curious how Nexus gets paid through that process. How does your organization sustain itself there?
Yeah, it's a combination. There's grant funding. Some of the steps, there are fees involved. And well, that's pretty much it.
Great, thanks.
Super. Lisa, any other inquiries for this section?
Not that I'm seeing. So.
And again, I look forward to the cumulative Q&A. It's always interesting how that works out. With that, I think I'll go to my producers, Evan, and I believe we have our friends from Broken Clock here too. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yeah, Jeremy is here.
Oh, Jeremy's here. Okay, yeah, my screen's kind of cramped up. So I suppose, Evan, since you guys started brewing first, I'll let you guys start, and we can flow right into the brewers, which of course are producers, but they're much more than that in our community, even with their relatively shorter tenure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin. I'm really excited and happy to be here. And thanks for thinking of me, and thanks for putting on this forum. And I don't know, it was really great to be reminded of that time, a few years ago when we raised those glasses with everybody from around the world. That was pretty wild. That I don't know, just kind of forgotten about that. It was a nice little memory. So thanks for that. Yeah, so I am one of the co-founders of Fair State Brewing Cooperative. We opened our doors in the fall of 2014. If you think way back then, I think we at the time felt like we were getting in really late to the brewery game, and it turns out that was not at all the case. I think we were something like the 60th brewery to open in Minnesota, and now there's some more than 3 times that in this state. So it's been really exciting, I think, to be a part of that movement. And what really led us to starting Fair State as a cooperative. Somehow I got muted. There we go. Was just all the ways in which beer lends itself to community, and cooperatives lend themselves to community. And to us, that seemed just such I think a really exciting and fertile space to work in. And at the time that we decided to start this, there was only actually one cooperatively owned brewery in the entire country, and that was Black Star Brewing Cooperative, who I think we kind of all owe a debt of gratitude to, down in Austin, Texas. And it really was just kind of myself and my co-founders going there randomly and drinking beer and saying, this is a pretty cool spot. They've got a really interesting community here, and thinking about all the opportunities that we knew that there were in Minneapolis, because we have such a deep well of cooperatives in this state and in this city and in the Eastside. And to kind of see all of that foundation, how well our community understands and how well our community supports cooperatives, and then to just see the opportunity that was beer, it was really exciting to us, and really kind of formed the foundation of what caused us to say, hey, let's start a cooperatively owned brewery, because really beer brings people together, and it was I think being able to build a space where people could actually have a say in what that kind of space looks like is, for us, that was kind of a really kind of key element of that power. How, there's lots and lots and lots of different kinds of cooperatives, and they all operate in different ways. But breweries were really unique because not only did we make the beer, but we could have this tap room, this space where people could come together and commune, and be able to make of that space kind of what they wanted. And so I think, broadly, that's why this idea was so powerful to us. A very common question that I get is, why a cooperative? And from, I guess, our perspective, we never really wanted to start a brewery until the cooperative idea came about. We, I had been a home brewer since I was 18. Turns out it's legal to buy homebrewing ingredients when you're underage, because they don't include alcohol. And one of my experiences, and I think this is a pretty common experience, is the first time you make a beer that isn't completely terrible, all of your friends tell you that you need to start a brewery, and it's probably not true. But and so that was kind of me and our co-founders, we were just never really thought that was in the cards for us until this whole co-op idea came. And then that's what really led us to think that we maybe had something special. And the community, the beer community, the co-op community in Minneapolis, really kind of being able to bridge that divide and rely on the strength of those communities has really helped us into building the successful business. And of course, I would be remiss to not talk about being able to do this in a building owned by NEIC. I think that was, having NEIC there to be our landlord, to kind of do this co-op within co-op model almost that we're doing, I think was really such a powerful thing for us. And being able to do it in the Eastside, where we have our communities are diverse, but they're also communities with like a lot of roots, and there's a really strong group of people here. And I think all of us know that this area, it's got just a very special and unique community to be a part of it. And so to be able to kind of plant our brewery in the middle of that, and be able to, try to be able to provide that space in a community like Northeast has been really, really special. And so I think it's something that we're, really, really proud and kind of humbled to be a part of. So, I think that's kind of broadly, who we are, where we came from, where we started. So obviously, it's been 6 years that we've been open. It's been quite a whirlwind, quite a run, and obviously the pandemic has really thrown our industry for a loop. It's been extremely rough for Fair State, and I think in a lot of ways Fair State probably has it better than a lot of other breweries. When the pandemic first hit, we were running projections that looked like maybe our revenues would be down something like 80 or 90% in 2020. Thankfully, that didn't end up coming to pass. But for a while, that was the world that we were looking at. And we had to make some tough decisions. Unfortunately, we had to furlough people. We had to lay people off. I'm really happy to be able to say that we've been able to bring very, very nearly everyone back. And in some departments, we've actually had to hire up just because of, for instance, it takes a lot more labor to fill a ton of crowlers than it does to sell them as pints. And so, I think that there's a lot of ways in this industry where, even maybe if some of our revenues are where they were, the cost structure has really, really changed due to the pandemic. And, our business, we have a tap room. I think that's really kind of the foundation of who we are. It's, really the soul of us as a cooperative business, but we also sell beer to bars and restaurants who, many of whom have been hit, far worse than us, and are really, really suffering. And, that obviously it causes effects for them, it causes effects for a community, but then it also affects us as a business. So, it's been quite difficult to manage through, but thankfully I'm really, really happy that we have the team that we've got working at Fair State are I think second to none. They're incredibly smart, they're incredibly thoughtful, they're incredibly community oriented, and everybody was really able to, I think, come to this pandemic with an attitude that we should work together and help support each other where we can. And I've been very proud, I think, to be able to work alongside them. And similarly, obviously, I think the community of Northeast has been really instrumental in keeping us alive, and hopefully putting Fair State into a position where we can exit this pandemic as an actually thriving business rather than one that's just limping along. So this past summer we actually executed a capital campaign with our members to raise some additional funds to both help fund us through this pandemic, but then also give us some opportunities to try to actually expand our footprint and be able to provide when we're finally able to open our doors again, a better experience than our members had, before the pandemic. So that is one thing, even though we are technically allowed under the state to do indoor service, that's kind of something that we've chosen not to do, just primarily for the safety of our staff, but then also for the safety of our communities. That's an incredibly difficult decision. I don't think I could fault a lot of the businesses who've felt that they needed to do that in order to stay afloat. But that's kind of been the decision that's been right for us, and thankfully, through to-go sales and through the fact that we are able to sell beer to liquor stores, that has been a decision that's been viable for us. John obviously mentioned the ways in which George Floyd and the surrounding issues and uprising there have kind of caused Eastside to rethink a lot of the things that they do. I think we've gone through a lot of similar processes. One thing that we kind of did this summer and fall was we kind of undertook an initiative where we really saw that there was an opportunity for us in a way that was kind of directly related to what we do as a business to push for change in the way that Minnesota treats mental health and the way that relates to police intervention. Because one thing that we realized is, we deal pretty regularly with folks who come into the brewery who have, for one reason or the other, they're in some state of mental distress. And we didn't really have a lot of opportunities or, ability to seek resources to help us deal with getting these people out or otherwise helping them beyond just calling the police, who would basically just show up and arrest them. And, that was not really effective for anybody. It was pretty disruptive to our patrons, and it certainly wasn't a lasting solution. These people would come back on a regular basis. So it clearly wasn't providing them the support that they needed, and it wasn't providing us as a community the support that we needed. And so we, did a lot of pushing with a lot of great support from a lot of different people to try to, get some of those changes. So, that was a big thing that we undertook. The other big news that development that happened to us during the pandemic is that we became the first Brewers Association defined microbrewery to become unionized. And so that's, I think, been really important for us as a team. One thing that, we've pushed at from the very beginning is to, provide fair wages to all of our employees and to try to provide an actual, real livable space for people to work. Especially when we were getting started, I think the brewing industry had a bit of a dark underbelly in the way it treated labor. I know a lot of people who they got their in the industry by working 40-hour days illegally for free. Or not, sorry, 40-hour weeks, not 40-hour days. That would be terrible. But and so we wanted to really push back on that. And so, from almost as soon as we could, dedicated ourselves to, providing every single person who works for us a living wage. Apologies for my dog. And, so I think being able to kind of take that ethos and push it one step farther by having our staff unionize and recognizing that union quickly, I think it's really important for us. And I'm really excited to kind of be at the vanguard of that movement.
Thank you, Evan. I believe Jeremy's on, but I think your stories, Evan, not only highlight some of the things that John and the EFC movement in terms of responsiveness and expansiveness of both needs and values, but the resiliency, the economic resiliency required to survive challenges, both pandemic and a social racial reckoning, all had an impact that will define 2020 for years to come. How important this model can be in the name of resiliency. So, thanks.
Thank you.
And Jeremy?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. And like Evan said, our staff is probably first and foremost what got us through this pandemic. So you're very much correct in that regard. Well, our story begins a lot like every other business startup, an idea written on a cocktail napkin in a bar. For us, really what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a business that gave employees ownership of the labor that they were producing. And then we wanted to really lean into the community and what was important to them. Previously I came from an industry that was extremely cutthroat and really operated with the mentality of what's in it for me. And, for me personally, it took a pretty big toll to just kind of see what that did to employees and what they were doing. And to me, the employees are the most important part of the business. And so, that's why we decided to start a co-op. The idea of a co-op actually came far before even the idea of a brewery, which was pretty interesting that Evan kind of shared the same story. Selfishly, the brewery idea probably came after we were sitting in so many tap rooms spending money. We figured, why not just start a brewery, because we can save ourselves some money there. But yeah, it was about starting a cooperative business, and it was about starting a business that really put the focus on employees in the community. So we established in late 2015, and then in 2016 was when we really set out to raise money for the brewery. We would host parties and give away homebrew that we all made, probably awful homebrew. I suppose it was good enough to get people to sign up, but really, and the majority of the time that we spent was spending teaching people the ideas of what a cooperative is, what the concept was of one member, one vote. It's a very foreign concept to a lot of people, and it really took us a lot of work to explain what it is that we're actually trying to do. We want it to be a community-owned business, but through all that, we were able to build enough community support to make an offer on an existing brew house in May of 2017. We were able to open the brewery, and then for the first year, we were production and distribution only. So because we were so small, and because we were so small, we weren't allowed to have a tap room. We had to not only make beer, but then we had to go out and sell it and distribute it to anyone that would carry our beer. And through that, we were trying to tell the story of what it is to be a fully community-owned co-op. But luckily, we had a lot of success, and the community really did a great job of rallying behind us. So much so that in 2018, we were able to kind of take the next step, which was build a tap room. I think the proudest moment of being able to build a tap room was that, with the exception of some electrical, HVAC, and plumbing pieces that the landlord had to take care of, we built the entire tap room using volunteer labor. All of our members stepped up and built the tap room by hand, which was pretty cool and pretty unique. But I think, through this whole process, we've learned a lot of lessons. Mainly, as you heard earlier, one of the most difficult things for us to do is to raise large amounts of capital when you don't have principal owners putting in the majority of the money. So we really spent a lot of time figuring out how can we raise enough money to make these massive capital investments. And so we spent a lot of time really focused on that. But we also learned that, communities have this really amazing ability to rally when they need to. I can't even tell you how many times we didn't think we were going to hit a deadline, or we didn't think something was going to happen because we didn't have enough money, or we didn't have enough support or buy-in. And it was always the community stepping up and the employees stepping up saying, we can make this happen. And we somehow have been able to meet every single deadline because of that. I think the best example, like we've been talking about recently, is with the pandemic. When the shutdown happened, we were extremely concerned that we weren't going to survive. Being the type of business that we are, we don't have a lot of large cash reserves. We had just essentially spent all of our money building a tap room, and 2020 was supposed to kind of be our growth year. It was supposed to be the year that we were going to finally save up some money that we can put it in the bank in case in case there's a rainy day. And so we really thought we were doomed. Like Evan said, we were projecting to lose the majority of everything we had. And unfortunately, we don't have the same distribution footprint as a lot of breweries. And so really what it came down to is us reaching out to our members and the community and saying, we need your help. And they absolutely stepped up. Everyone came out. We were able to keep all of our employees. We furloughed a couple of people just based on hours of not having the tap room open. But, without the community support, we would have never survived. And so that's why anytime someone asks me about co-ops and why I started a co-op or why we chose this model, and I truly believe that it's because of the resiliency that this model offers to people. It's amazing, and I truly feel like cooperative models are the wave of the future. I think it's, you saw the statistics earlier on what happens during pandemics, and And when there's recessions and things like that, co-ops seem to always thrive. And so I always preach to everyone, cooperative models are absolutely the way to go. And then, of course, just to kind of piggyback on all of everything that happened this summer in regards to George Floyd, for us, what was really great was to see how our community and members and staff really rallied behind what had happened with that. And so for us, we really took a huge step back and said, what are we doing not only as an organization, but as an industry as a whole? The brewing industry has been pretty deeply rooted in a lot of kind of white males dominating the industry. And so, we felt like we had to do something not only for our community, but for the industry as a whole. And so we actually created a race equity chair and it's a specific chair that sits on our board to kind of oversee everything that we're doing and looking at it through the proper lenses that it should be looked at. And, we teamed up with an organization called Brewing Change Collaborative to kind of help us on this journey. And if you're not familiar with them, I highly recommend you look into them, especially if you are interested in craft beer. They're doing a lot of amazing things to really bring diversity into the craft brewing world. And so we created an initiative with them to really just kind of rethink and relook the way that we go about our business. And, from a lot of that, a lot of our focus is going to be and needs to be spent in BIPOC communities. And so that's really a lot of what we're going to be doing. And the great part about it is that it is really the community and the membership driving this entire thing. So it's not like a decision by one or two people. This is an entire community saying this is what we need to do and this is how we need to do it. And it's just been a very humbling experience for me to know that, this just wasn't something I was thinking about, but we actually have an entire community thinking about it. And so, to be able to have an entire community that you can lean on to help you make decisions and to help, guide the future of what we want to do, I think is extremely promising. So, that's kind of our story. That's who we are. That's what we're trying to do. We're the little brewery that's community owned, and we love it.
Well, thanks for sharing all that, Jeremy. Again, another story of resiliency, the power of workers, as you highlighted, but it seems like with cooperatives, everyone that's directly involved seems to be thought about in an intentional way. And then those are not necessarily directly involved, be it employee, member, owner, frequent shopper. There's just that sense of you look around and you think, what's going on in community and how can we be meaningful? It just seems to be a natural extension of a cooperative enterprise, at least as I've observed it. And to that end, one of the things that I think is very interesting to think about is not just the willingness of people to come together and strategize and do collective resourcing, strategizing, put into a business model and have a successful effort. And then from that being a platform for other initiatives that are meaningful to community. One of the things that I think is very important is that we do things in space. We do things in a place. And a community is a place, but that's often defined by the people, which is a very important thing. But it's also the physical environment that we're in, the geographic environment, the proximity of place. And with that, that's my little segue to to me, the critical and strategic importance of something along the lines of the Northeast Investment Cooperative. So critical that it's always brought up. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier. Anytime I go to a forum or any sort of policy grouping or some sort of study session where cooperative model is being discussed, once they hear that I'm from Minneapolis, let alone from Northeast Minneapolis, they go right to this thing they've heard about, the NEIC. And that's because I think it plays such a linchpin role into what I think needs to be expanded rather greatly, in the same way that business, local and or family-owned business conversions in the cooperative model seems to be kind of a great frontier. Owning the spaces in which people do the things that carry the values that we're talking about tonight is important too. we need to do things in place. And I believe those places should be owned cooperatively, if not intentionally, for social purposes. So with that, I believe Jill and anyone else from the NEIC is here to share some updates from their perspective.
Yes, hello. My name is Jill Wilhelmy. I'm the current president on the board of directors of Northeast Investment Cooperative. I have two of my colleagues here, Melissa Mound, Michael Darger, and I make up the membership and marketing committee for NEIC. And we've prepared a fairly simple presentation, and we hope it gives you a little background on the organization and, shares some of what we are for, and what we do, and can you see my screen? Anybody?
Yes.
Can you see? Okay, excellent day. All right. So here's our simple presentation. So, okay, Northeast Investment Cooperative, the basics. This group was founded in 2011 by a group of about 10 people, a lot of Northeast names that you would recognize, who had been very involved also with the food co-op. And so they were very familiar with the cooperative model. They were very, familiar with how it can benefit a community, I suppose. And there were actually some people involved who work with cooperatives for their day job. They looked up and down Central Avenue, this vital artery of our neighborhood in 2011, and they said, gosh, there's a ton of buildings that are vacant, underutilized, owned by people that don't live in our community. And so, they started gathering people. They started talking about it, making a plan, and they formed the cooperative. Some of the cooperative principles that have been talked about already by other folks on the call. We talk about local capital, local profits, local ownership, one member, one vote. And NEIC has an all volunteer elected board of directors. Kind of the premise of Northeast Investment Cooperative is we are a real estate investment cooperative. So far, we've done 2 commercial real estate projects, but we've always said that, if the right project came up that was either residential or mixed use, we'd for sure take a look. The premise of this is that, members of our community invest in Northeast Investment Cooperative. NEIC invests in local property. The property hopefully will yield returns. Profits are returned to investors and reinvested. Hopefully you get this, virtuous cycle many, many times. Where we work. So we made a deliberate decision that only people who live within the state of Minnesota can invest in Northeast Investment Cooperative. That is a good thing. It drives down complexity. It avoids interstate securities entanglements and regulations in that way. At this point, we call ourselves Northeast Investment Cooperative. Our focus has been Northeast Minneapolis. We have 2 types of shares. The basic membership share is called an A share. Each share is $1,000. It's required to become a member. It allows you to vote for board members and bylaw changes, and it can be eligible for capital account allocations. The other share types are C and D shares. These are not currently available. We will open a new series of C and D shares when we are back into fundraising mode, when we've identified a new project. For those of you who keep asking, we've actually identified a potential project, and I'm super duper excited about that, but that's all I'm going to say right now. these shares can be purchased for $500 or $5,000 a share. Only members can purchase C or D shares. Multiple shares can be purchased. C and D shares are given dividend preference over A shares. The overall value of the share will not change. So a D share is always worth 5,000. A C share is always worth 500. And you don't get any additional votes when you purchase C or D shares. Okay, return on investment. So the first return was returned to members in 2015, also in 16, 17, and 20. We just voted on that last night, actually. So with the A shares, we give what is called a capital credit allocation, and it increases the value of the A share. Those are given on a pro rata basis that, based upon how long you've been in the organization. The C and D shares are paid out 2% and 4% respectively. And like I said, the board, we have a set of criteria, but we vote to declare dividends and make capital allocation credits. What we do, so project number 1 for longtime Northeasters, you might recognize this picture. It was a pretty rundown property. We were able to purchase this. Believe it or not, the yellow side did not even have water service hooked up. It did have a man who was, treating old used mattresses with insecticide, and a couple of cats and a dog living in it, though, so that was nice. This first project was a 2-part project. So a few of you longtime Northeasters also might remember that Recovery Bike Shop used to take up space, or used to run a space out of the food co-op. And so we purchased this entire parcel. Recovery Bikes purchased the left-hand side, and then the right-hand side shortly became, to the next slide, Fair State Brewing Cooperative and Aki's Bread House. So, here's a few beautiful pictures so you can see, what was before and what is now. Oohs and ahs, beautiful. And we have had a lot of people joke to us that these 3 businesses are the hipster trifecta: bikes, bread, and beer. Project number 1 by the numbers. We had 203 members who had invested a total of $279,500. Total project cost for the build out, we built it to what's called a vanilla shell, and then Fair State and Aki's, took it to the next level as far as how they wanted to customize the inside. The building net income is approximately $25,000 a year. Volunteer hours involved, thousands. Total investment by all parties involved, about $1.5 million. Jobs created, in the ballpark of 40 jobs. We considered project number 1 to be, fireworks, home run, all of the good things. Okay, talking about member recruitment. NEIC is kind of always in the process of recruiting new members, additional members. It's very labor intensive without paid staff. We use Facebook, we use social media, we used to host info sessions. We've done a few things on Zoom in the past year. A lot of people are kind of zoomed out, but it gets the job done. We used to host community events, again, that has kind of gone by the wayside in 2020, but we're hoping to, maybe host some outdoor events this spring or summer. And recruitment is a big effort for us. Tenant recruitment, also largely word of mouth. the organization interviewed several prospective tenants before making the selections. You know, again, we feel like we've won the lottery with the tenants that we have, and you know, it's just been a great thing working with both. You know, co-ops. We talk a lot about that we can offer. You know, we can take different factors into consideration than a traditional, just a corporation or whatnot, who is only concerned about profit. You know, we can do different things that could help our tenants or accommodate them in different ways. We've also looked at, you know, the possibility that we could buy a building with existing good tenants and, you know, acquire property in that way. Project number 2 ended up being just across the street up into Columbia Heights. This was probably the best thing that this building had going for it, was that it was cheap. We did a full rehab of the building, so brought it, you know, made it look a lot nicer inside, updated bathrooms, electricity, you know, electrical, HVAC and plumbing all brought up to code, turned it into a much nicer space. We now have a new tenant, VL Builders. The owner, Victor Lebec, is Hispanic, and so we're very pleased to have our first tenant, BIPOC tenant. You know, he seems to be a great addition to the neighborhood and the community. He's hiring like gangbusters right now. I guess he is really busy. And so that's all great news. Why join? Okay. And Melissa or Michael, if you have anything to add, please do. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking.
I'll add a few things when you get done.
Okay. So benefits to our neighborhood, you know, creating jobs, local ownership. This one for me was a big one. When the organization was started in 2011, I went to a couple info sessions, and I admit that I was highly skeptical of the model. I wasn't familiar with co-ops at all. I thought it was, you know, some kind of a goofball idea. But you know, my husband Lauren got on board with it before I did. And one statistic that I recall at one of the info sessions really stuck out to me, and that was that when looking at our you know, commercial artery, Central Avenue, more than 70% of the properties within about a 20 block stretch were owned by people who did not live in our neighborhood. And indeed, many of them didn't even live in our state. And I said, well, you know, someone who lives in West Virginia is not going to care if their parking lot is full of garbage. Someone who lives way out in Wayzata doesn't care if their building has broken windows. You know, for whatever reason, that statistic really resonated with me, and I joined the group soon after. So influence on development. This is kind of a sticky topic. We have a lot of people who ask us, aren't you just gentrifiers? Aren't you just gentrifying the neighborhood? It's a really hard question to answer. I think kind of the consensus with the group is that development is happening in Northeast, whether you want it to or not, or whether you think it's good or bad or otherwise. Why not get involved? You know, throw your hat in the ring and have a positive influence on it. And so that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. We currently have 293 members. And so we like to say that any tenants that we have 293 people in the community who are already invested in their success, or who have a vested interest in the success of our tenants. We think, you know, that this leads to a stronger business community. You know, what Recovery Bikes and Fair State and Aki's have done for just their block, their part of the neighborhood. You know, there's increased street traffic, there's light, bright, friendly businesses that are, you know, attracting people to the neighborhood, and it raises all businesses. And when it comes to, you know, having an influence on development and having multiple bottom lines, NEIC always says that we will, you know, definitely have a preference for local independent businesses versus, you know, we don't necessarily need a Starbucks. We don't necessarily need, you know, large corporate chains. We love the character of small local and independent businesses, and so that's who we choose to rent to. Financial benefits, you know, I've said it a couple times already, but you know, local ownership of Northeast real estate. Profits stay local in that, you know, we return you know, parts of what we earn to our members. We've made a point that any building that we purchase, we want to improve it, make it beautiful, make it a part of the neighborhood that we can be proud of. You know, NEIC is a way of putting your money to work in your neighborhood. And we can potentially offer a higher return than savings. We were just looking at some of the numbers the other night, and you know, rates on a CD or a savings bond or a savings account are quite low right now. So we can beat that. How to join? We have an online membership application on our website. We also work with snail mail. And so here's one slide that I made kind of at the last minute after a conversation with Michael and Melissa. It would be a big miss on our part to not say anything about an organization called Cooperative Development Services, or CDS. CDS is, Michael, could you talk about CDS a little bit?
You bet. And thanks for putting the slide there. But so Cooperative Development Services has for a long time been the group in Minnesota that helps co-ops across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And so, you know, they were the one that helped both the Eastside Food Co-op and Northeast Investment Co-op in significant ways on the ground. And they're located in St. Paul. And so Nexus Community Partners is a great newer organization in the Twin Cities and Minnesota. But I don't think we should forget about Cooperative Development Services. So our ecosystem for co-ops is increasing. And that's the only point here. CDS has helped 2 of the 3 co-ops, and maybe they've helped Broken Clock or Fair State, I don't know. But the co-ops, really the co-ops, you know, the original co-ops in Northeast are Eastside Food Co-op and NEIC. And in fact, you know, Eastside Food Co-op kind of was, in some respects, and Kevin knows this, you know, they're the ones who kind of looked out. They incubated that recovery bike shop. They're looking for a space for it. So then Amy Fields and Leslie Watson, who were the original manager of the co-op and one of the top leaders on the board in the early years of the food co-op, they're the ones that kind of dreamed up with some other people, the Northeast Investment Cooperative. So one cooperative can lead to another cooperative, but CDS was on the ground. And so CDS, just one more thing on CDS, is that they work with the city of Minneapolis in a program that Kevin Reich helped start, which is the Cooperative Technical Assistance Program. And so CDS has been chosen to deliver some webinars and training this year. And in fact, they're doing one of those webinars with me and wearing my hat, not as an NEIC board member, but as a University of Minnesota Extension specialist in community economics. And I led a grant last year about converting businesses to co-ops, you know, worker cooperatives across Minnesota and Wisconsin. So CDS was one of my partners on that. And so they've got some workshops and webinars coming up this year with the support of City of Minneapolis. And so thank you, Kevin, for that. But, you know, it's great. We now have Nexus and we have CDS. as technical assistance providers and cooperators on the ground. And the only other thing that I wanted to say was, before I hand it back to you, Jill, is that I put it in the chat, Lisa or Kevin. I don't know if other people can see the chat, but right now I have a survey open. So any of you Northeasters who are on the call, we're really only interested in people from Northeast answering the survey because it's about our neighborhood. But the Northeast Investment Cooperative is in the middle of a strategic planning process with Leslie Watson. And so I have a link in the chat, and I don't know, Lisa or Kevin, if other people can see that, but I would appreciate other people giving their ideas to our investment cooperative for what kind of businesses and what kind of, what kind of gaps there are in Northeast, and what other ideas they want to give us about, because we're looking for more projects, and we're thinking about what is our future, what should we be doing next? And so can you share that? It's the bit.ly, BIT, whatever, I don't have it in front of me, but it's in the chat. Can people see the chat?
Yeah, we can see the chat, Michael.
All right,
Yeah.
please do.
The only people
survey.
who can't are those on phones.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Okay. And, so kind of one last little blip about CDS. So Kevin has mentioned that Northeast Investment Cooperative has gotten a bit of press, which is amazing and excellent. But we've had people reach out to us. I think we had counted one time, and from 17 different countries and from like 47 states, all asking about how did you, this idea resonates with a lot of people of a real estate investment cooperative. And they say, how did you do it? Would you share your material? Which we have put, our bylaws and some of our formation documents online so that people can see it. We've actually made a tab on our website that's called Forming a Cooperative. But people ask us, would you review these legal documents for us? And there's where we say, hold on. Here's where you really need some expertise, because a cooperative is, it's a legal vehicle for, it's a legal entity. So we do recommend that, you need to talk to some professionals, whether it be an accountant, a lawyer, people who do this on a day-to-day basis. Even consulting a lawyer, a lot of lawyers are not familiar with cooperatives. And so, working with a team that could start off your organization on the right path with the right things considered is so important. And so we get a lot of these inquiries, probably at least one a week, and we bounce a lot of them over to CDS to just say, we are an all-volunteer board. We're unable to we are unable to review your legal documents and tell you if these are appropriate, and you should speak to a professional. Here's a good contact for you. And so I added this slide to our presentation kind of at the last minute, just because I figured it would be a big gap not to. So here's our website and our email address, and we'd love to hear from anybody who has any questions or who's interested in our organization. And that is the end of my presentation. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you, Jill and Michael. Any questions for any of our panelists as we close out this very rich forum? Lisa?
I see that Nicholas has a hand up.
Nicholas.
Hey again.
Nicholas?
Thanks for that presentation about the Northeast Investment Cooperative. I have a question about corporate types like me who have our investments tied up in 401ks. Is there a way for us to bring our wealth to you, or is it stuck in ExxonMobil stocks?
We would love to have you join us. And, like I said, we have gone into fundraising mode each time that we have started a new project. We are kind of on the cusp of where we may be able to do that again. But we say bring your patient capital to us. Don't buy a share with your rent money. We we would incorporate it with 293 other people within your community and try to make decisions about development that reflect the values of the community, I guess, is kind of our pitch.
So I guess what I'm asking is specifically, is there a way for my money that's tied up in my retirement funds to make it into the, or maybe not?
Can you buy, is it like a self-directed IRA? Can you buy other investments?
I've looked into transforming it into a self-directed IRA. That's like a lot of work. But if that's the only way, then maybe that's what I'll have to do.
Well, I mean, if your 401k would allow an investment in our co-op, I think that might be possible, but I don't know the co-op laws. But if your 401k won't allow it, then I don't think that it will work.
Sure. Okay.
And I would say I am not a financial advice giver. And so I would say, if you would choose to, make an investment with us, it's a $1,000 membership share. And there would be other opportunities, like I had said about the COD shares, that could, we have awarded dividends, and we've, the A shares do grow in value over time. So that might be something that you're interested. But if you have more detailed questions, I'm going to bring someone from the Finance and Governance Committee to answer those.
Okay.
This might be a good time to ask if anyone on the phone wants to ask a verbal question.
Thank you, Lisa. And is that still a *6?
I think it's *6 to unmute.
Yeah.
But I'm not as experienced with those council meetings as you are.
If that's the one with public hearings, then yes, it's *6, Kevin, because I was on the public hearing last week.
Oh, thank you. Not seeing any. Well, and I should note that I did not intend this to be the last forum or conversation on cooperatives. This was just to get the wheels spinning in a particular direction and touch base with those closest to our Eastside community here that are involved. I certainly know the importance of CDS, North Country Investment, and so many other people who were the wise, active people who guided us to the Eastside Food Cooperative effort, which has been mentioned that was the platform for so many other considerations, including NEIC. So the way I contemplated it would be another follow-up with, something where we would talk with local business communities who may be in a position for transition and create a forum for that stakeholder group to get an information session. And of course, the broader public would be invited. And CDS would definitely be a part of that phase of the game. And then, of course, if there's any sort of initial effort that's now how we're trying to address new efforts, be it a fundraising campaign for NEIC, a specific sort of outreach, we want to connect with community that any of the groups want to sponsor. We want to be able to be a platform for that. And so there will be more forums moving forward. In part, I want to make sure that the variety of businesses that have started up in the cooperative model get recognized as well. It's everything from daycare to mountain climbing clubs to you name it are active not only in our own community, but regionally. And so to give that broader array was another concept we had. But I wanted to get one out there now. And I thought this would be a good way to do it. I think back, I did mention when Dane Pauline Green, who was the head of the International Consortium of Cooperatives, did tip that glass very early on at Fair State, and we had the world of cooperative players here in Northeast. It was a moment of pride. Of course, I had to be a little bit hastened. I was in my civic pride zeal. I was saying that Fair State was the first cooperative brewery, and I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was from someone from San Antonio, or not San Antonio, Austin, saying, actually, no, that's not correct. And he was very authoritative in correcting me in that sense. But we did get a first with the cooperative union combo, so we got a big win there. And I would say East EFC, of course, is also unionized. It was an interesting conversation where two different perspectives found a core set of values to move forward. Not unsurprising, but it still needed to be done, and a lot of conversation around that. And I would say also there are other people who are looking to some of the things we've done. Just as Jill said, there are people around the world, I'm not surprised, looking at NEIC and its very local grassroots effort. I recall we had a meeting again at Fair State where Village Financial Trust, which is a bank cooperative, which is part of a broader economic and community empowerment movement over in North Minneapolis, were able to share space in Fair State to talk about that effort. And even though there's fits and starts with some of these efforts, that effort has new leadership and is moving forward, and I will continue to put my full shoulder into that effort, because just as important as it is to have access to the things you need, like food, the ability to produce things, and I think beer is a very necessary thing to produce, and we can do it locally, so we don't have to worry about our supply. I would say having access to property and the value that is created through owning property as a community is definitely a key factor. But boy, in the middle of all that, almost the ghost in the machine in some respects is money. And I would say that if there's ever a community that wants and desires and should have some access to control of its economic empowerment through money and the circulation of money and the purposes that can go behind how money is circulated, it can either be for harm, and I could enumerate the different ways of which distribution of money creates harm and extraction, and of course there's distribution which creates empowerment, enrichment, and sustainability. And so not only did Village Financial Trust break bread with us, they are continuing their efforts, and we will continue with their efforts. And just as an aside, we were going to be joined by Angela Rose Myers, who's the new president of the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP. And she was intrigued by what we were doing too. And it was in a conversation where I reached out to her by way of introduction to a new leader in our community. And it just so happens that she is very well versed in the power of the cooperative model, not only personally, but she comes from two generations of economic economists, both in terms of practicing and then, of course, teaching at the academic level, and very familiar with the power of the cooperative model for the Rondo community. Her family members are directly connected to that effort and the conversations about trying to renew and revive something that was lost to be regained again in that community over in St. Paul. And they're looking to bring those sort of resources, insights to join some of the efforts around Village Financial Trust in terms of NAACP's mission. But at the bottom of it, there's so much there in both of the educational component and the economic empowerment component. And this is a new leader who seems very, very intrigued in both areas, and she places the cooperative model right in the middle of that. So, of course, I'm very intrigued by that. Wanted to give her a shout out because she's already watching what we're doing over here on the other side of the river in an intriguing way. And I know the cooperative model says cooperation among cooperatives is paramount. It's not even negotiable. We have to do it. And so with that, I'm glad those who are closest to us and some of our local efforts are still shoulder to shoulder, knowing that there are other folks in our broader community who are going to look to us to be a part of what they're trying to accomplish. And I believe everyone here wants to be a part of that. And certainly in our next conversations, we will have those broader discussions as well. And I'm very, very committed to that. I think conversation matters. It's harder now in this current situation, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it and can't do it. So I'm very, very grateful for people taking their time to meet in this format. And if we have to meet again in this format, we will. But boy, I really look forward to when we can come together in space and see each other physically. I really think that matters as well. But for now, thank you, everyone. I don't know if there's any lingering questions or comments. I'm always open to that. But if not, thank you, presenters. I really am grateful for what you shared.
Thanks for the session, Kevin.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you
Good
for
to hear your
hosting.
voice.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lisa. And
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good to see everybody. Thank you.